Good morning and welcome to Our Issues Milwaukee. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. This morning, it's my pleasure to have as a guest a member of the Wisconsin State Senate representing the 6th District, State Senator Nikiya Harris Dodd. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for
having
me.
And it really is a pleasure to have you here today. I just want to kind of give people at home a chance to get to know you as the politician and the woman who truly is working to make a difference in our community. In 2012, you ran for office, and I think what many people would describe as a heavily contested primary, and you won with almost 50% of the votes and took the state Senate seat after State Senator Spencer Coggs went on to be county treasurer. So with that all said, you've been in office now for about a year and a half. So what are some of your responsibilities as a state senator?
Well, as a state senator, I've taken this role very seriously, first of all. I have went in head first. And understanding that it's going to be a large responsibility to the community. And so I've taken on challenges like working on employment, economic development, fighting the correction system, and just how we are the highest in the nation incarcerating African American males, and looking at issues on how we can reduce that number so that we can have more men working, and particularly African American males. Again, we're 57% in Milwaukee where there are men that are unemployed. And so it's not a light duty job at all. And I learned that very early on because they don't cut you any breaks. Once you get in there, you're in there.
Yeah, you're in there.
Exactly. And so those are some of the issues that I've taken very seriously and to heart because I love Milwaukee and I want to make sure that I am fighting for their best interest and having that voice behind me.
And you served 2 years on the Milwaukee County Board of Supervisors, but before that you worked in the nonprofit sector and you were a preschool teacher.
Yes.
So somewhere along the way something was triggered that made you want to go into politics and work on these issues that are so close to your heart. So when did that happen exactly where you thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do?
Well, this will be the first time I've actually shared part of this story on the air. And I actually remember, and it took me years before I remembered this, is I sat on my dad's lap one day and told him I was going to be the first woman president of the United States. Now, where that had come from, I honestly don't know, but I was always an ambitious kid who wanted to help people. That's just in my nature to want to be a helper, and so it's just a natural transition, to be quite honest, working in nonprofit sectors, working for the university system at one time, working with low-income students who were disadvantaged and maybe didn't have the idea to want to go to college, but I worked on programs and in programs that will introduce them to college. So it's just been a part of my life's journey.
Yeah, and so being that you come from teaching as part of your background, it's no surprise that during the 2013-14 legislation session that you were on many committees, and education was one of those committees, and public works, but you also pushed for an increase to the minimum wage, access to job training, and affordable health care, and I think that you have shed some light on the importance of those issues to you, but was that something that you had to go in with a military-style vest on to tackle those issues in the Senate?
To some degree, yes, especially raising the minimum wage. That's a really hard issue to tackle because we live in a society where low-wage workers are not appreciated. And we believe that because they work at a fast food service job that they don't deserve a higher wage. And I challenge that because you have adults with college degrees who are educated, raising a family, who've been on their jobs in the fast food industry for many years. And haven't had a raise. They can't continue to raise a family off $7.25 an hour. And so that really concerns me, and I think that that's an issue that should be taken very seriously.
Yeah, and we've talked about that issue on this show with individuals who actually work at fast food restaurants, and here you have everything that's getting higher, but people's pay is not balanced with the cost of everything else. So
That
it
is
all
correct.
makes a lot of sense. This past April, the Milwaukee County Emergency Detention Pilot Program that you created was actually signed into law. Tell us more about that.
Well, let me start by saying that this is not a new issue for me either. Mental
Okay.
health is an issue that I've always cared about for African Americans. When I was getting my graduate degree, one of the things that struck me is all the violence in our community, and I thought some of this is just not because people just are bad people. You know, you do have some career criminals, but there are some folks that may need medication that have caused a crime or created a crime, and they just weren't treated well. And I remember blurting this out to a boss saying, you know, some of this might be mental health, and some people are just not getting treated. And so I actually, when I became a county supervisor, partnered with Alverno College to do a mental health summit where we can talk about African Americans in our community that are bucking up against the stigma, to say, you know, I need help and I need treatment, so let me go get this. And so this was a no-brainer to me to have a pilot program in Milwaukee County where a healthcare professional can look at an individual and determine if they, you know, need medication before they're actually being put into jail or prison for something that could have been controlled easily.
Wow, and that has been an issue in
yes.
several instances where the police had actually approached someone not knowing they were mentally ill, and then it ended up being some sort of force used, and then you had headlines. And so I think it is, again, something that definitely needs to be contended with. And coming up, we've got a primary election on Tuesday, August 12th, and state senators representing the odd districts are going to be up for re-election, but you, as I have stated, are representing the 6th district. So that means that you get to sit this election out, which I'm sure is kind of like a phew, get a break, right?
To a certain extent, I get to sit it out.
To a certain extent.
I'm not the one on the ballot, but I am concerned about our state and the state legislature, and so it is important that I do support candidates that are in a Democratic Party so that we can get some seats.
Yeah.
And that's going to be very important that I am engaged in those campaigns.
Yeah, and you've worked very hard when it comes to voting. We've had a lot of different issues that have made national headlines, and you, being a Democrat, have spoken against Republican-backed legislation that would restrict voting for a lot of citizens. Early voting will now be limited, and you actually would like to see Wisconsin legislators vote on people being able to cast a vote online. So I'm sure that's a fight that stands ahead of you. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, that was an interesting idea, and I think that because we are in an information age, that is not unheard of.
Right.
In fact, there are organizations that do online voting all the time just within their organization. So it's something that can be done, and it's happening in other states, so we should explore it here in Wisconsin.
Okay, now let's talk on a personal level. You were born and raised right here in Milwaukee, and you're a graduate of Washington High School and UW Milwaukee. I know there's a lot of people out there going, yes. So I want to talk about this article that recently you wrote. It was kind of like an opinion in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, and it specifically is dealing with the violence that we're seeing take place here in our city, and it's not the normal level of violence. I think it's really obvious that there's a huge amount of crime taking place, and as the mayor and the police chief have pointed out on this show and on the news, a lot of it's involving young African-American males. So you talked about in this article, which read, "Collaboration Needed to Curb Gun Violence." You talked about all of us being guilty, politicians, the community, local officials, and the media. How so?
Well, I just believe in that old adage, it takes a village to raise a child. And I just feel like our village has failed our children. I grew up, you know, in that article, I was very upfront about growing up with a mother who suffered from addictions, one being crack and the other being alcohol. And so I remember my grandmother stepping in when my mother could not take care of us. And in fact, it wasn't until I was in about 10th grade where I decided I was just going to stay with my grandmother and really live out the rest of my life, because I had made a decision that I wanted something better in life. And I loved my mother, loved her to life.
Through it all.
Through it all. And but yet I had to come to it that one day I made a decision that my life had to change and be different because I could see it going a different path. And so just that village of having a grandmother, having aunts and uncles, even having community members believe in me, and not just me, but my other siblings, 8 other siblings, where the community stepped in and they loved us and they helped us through the hard issues. And so we have to be willing to do that, mentor, you know, helping to foster care, whatever that is, to make sure that our community is safe and that children are safe and that they're out of harm's way. That's something we need to be doing. And not saying that those things aren't happening, but we need more of it. We need
and
more
I
of
just
it.
loved how candid you were about that, especially being a politician. A lot of times people want everyone to think one thing, but you were honest in saying that you had to help raise your younger siblings to keep them out of foster care. And what I love most about that is you setting the example that really when young people are put in scenarios where they really can't control the circumstances that are around them, they do have a choice. They can choose to do what they've seen, or they can choose to do something different. And you're an example of what hard work and just knowing that you have it in you to do and be whatever you want. I think that's great for a lot of people to see. Absolutely. And there is a gathering that is scheduled for July 12th. In that article, you invited everyone to join you, and I thought, well, she should be able to invite even more people on a different level. So you're here today to tell us about this particular gathering that's happening on the 12th.
Yes. So what's happening on July 12th is my regular Coffee with the Senator. I do every other month Coffee with the Senator on the second Saturday, and then opposite months I do Breakfast with the Senator, which is on the second Sundays. So this isn't a unique gathering that I'm having, but the conversation will be unique because now we're going to focus on a particular situation, and that is the violence in our community. Normally, I have community members within my district come and just talk about issues that are happening in the state legislature that they want more answers to, or they want to vent out whatever their concerns are. It gives me that room, and that it gives them that table to have that conversation. And so now we're switching gears and we're saying, let's dedicate this particular Coffee with the Senator to the community, invite others who want to be there at Sherman Park. I know it's been
Understood. People think you're saying park. It's Park.
But it's Sherman Park, which is a really small cafe, but it should allow for us to have a really candid conversation where we can talk about the issues that are affecting our community around violence.
And that's what it's going to take. From 10:30 a.m. till noon, again, it's at Sherman Park, 4924 West Roosevelt Drive. And with talking about the violence in the city, what, in fact, are you hearing from your constituents dealing with some of the things that we've seen take place? Over 30 kids injured by gunfire, things of this nature that really are mind-boggling.
Well, they're tired of the violence and they want some solutions now. They don't have time for us to solve this problem next year. The unfortunate thing is I don't know if we can even solve it right now. However, having that conversation, and there have been conversations all over the city now happening because the community is outraged. They're tired of their kids dying. They're tired of their kids getting shot. They're tired of having to deal with the gun violence in our community. And so they want answers. And they're asking their politicians, what are you saying? Are you behind this issue? What are you going to talk about? Like, are you going to stand up? And hearing those voices, I had already been standing up. It just may not have been as visible as people would have liked. But now I'm like, hey, this is what we need. Not just what you want, but this is what you need. And I'm here to answer that call. And so they're tired and they're angry, and they want answers and solutions now.
And rightfully so.
Yes.
And as we wrap up, just wanted to get your opinion on advice that you would give to individuals out there watching, because sometimes people go to the polls and they vote. But then from there, they don't really know how to reach out to those individuals that they voted for. You make yourself available by being where they can come and see and talk to you. But a lot of times, you know, politicians are busy. They're in Madison, whatever the case may be, and people don't know how to reach out. what's the best thing for people to do to be able to communicate better with their legislators?
I think, and particularly in the Black community, we need to pick up that phone more. We need to find ways to get to Madison more and talk to our legislators and get in our faces. You know, none of us are isolated from hearing from our community, and by any means necessary, in a safe environment, you know, you have to get their attention. And I think that that's important, that, you know, people pick up those phones, send emails, write letters, come to Madison. We need to see them in Madison, to be honest. They want to see us in a community all the time, and we should be there, but sometimes we want to see them in Madison. And that is so much more huge, you know, that makes a bigger impact for the kind of legislation that we're trying to champion. And our colleagues on the other side need to see our people.
Okay.
And I challenge them to do that.
And a website where people can get more information on how to figure out the schedule of when to be in Madison, or a phone number to call. What's that website address?
The Wisconsin State Legislature. People can Google that. It's an easy find. And if they put in Wisconsin State Legislature, they will be able to find any member in the State House that they need to reach out to. Click on that link. It'll bring up our home pages, and everybody's name will be there, and they can access us easy. Everybody's information is there.
All right. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
And it's always a pleasure to see you. And I
Yes.
specifically appreciate you coming by and talking about these very important issues.
Thank you.
All right. Nikiya Harris Dodd. She's a Democratic member of the Wisconsin State Senate representing the 6th Senate District. And I thank you so much again for your time. When we return to Our Issues Milwaukee, we're going to meet a local community activist who's making a difference in his neighborhood in more ways than one. We're going to find out how when we talk with Andrea Ellis right after this.